Hey everyone, and welcome back to Game Audio Analysis. Before we start this video, I just want to let you know that it was created for the Micro Talk event with gameaudiola, so please check them out. They're a phenomenal resource and meetup when it's not during pandemic for game audio professionals in the Los Angeles area. I've left all of their information for social media, events, and their website in the description down below. Hi gameaudiola, I hope you're doing well. It's great to see all of you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike Thal. I am a technical sound designer and audio engineer at Turn Me Up Games. For those of you who have met me or seen some of my YouTube content, you may know that I'm just a little bit of a fighting game fan. And I've noticed over time that diving really deeply into these games has actually taught me a lot about how to become a better sound designer and promote myself better as a sound designer. So I wanted to share some of those skills and things I've learned over time with you. Now, I want to clarify, fighting games are not the only place you can learn these things. These are just where I happen to learn them. Maybe you can figure out ways that you find similarities in some of your favorite genres of games or just some other part of the world completely different. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing I'd like to highlight is that realistic sounds don't always make good sounds. In fact, frequently they don't. Things that we often think we know what they sound like are really just how we've heard them in movies, television, video games, etc. If you've dove into sound design for hand-to-hand combat or weapon sounds, you'll know that there is a lot of layering involved. Those are certainly there, but that's not exactly what I'm referring to right now. In fighting games, there's sometimes added aspects of sound effects that make absolutely no sense, no logical sense whatsoever. One great example I love that doesn't make realistic sense, but also ties into a character is with Sagat from Street Fighter. One of Sagat's defining traits is he says the word tiger before a lot of his special moves. In fact, he's closely associated with the animal and is sometimes depicted with an actual tiger. In Street Fighter 4, if you listen closely during his tiger uppercut, you can actually hear a tiger roaring while he is doing this big uppercut on the opponent. It's kind of cool, right? I mean, there's no tiger anywhere in the arena, but it does really tie into his character backstory, and it sounds pretty sick. The next thing I want to talk about is frame data. Fair warning, this may be a slightly difficult topic. Even people in the fighting game community are sometimes overwhelmed by it. So don't worry, I will try to explain it as simply as I can. If you've worked in film or video games or television, you may have heard the terms thrown around that something runs at 30 frames per second, something runs at 60 frames per second, whatever. Most video games, specifically fighting games, do run at 60 frames per second. At an in-depth level, fighting game players use frames as a unit of time.
Nearly every attack in a fighting game has 3 phases. They're called the startup, active, and recovery frames. But I think it helps to look at it as simply beginning, middle, and end.
You may realize from these images that if you put startup, active, and recovery together, you get the entire animation of a move. And this is good because you have a better idea of what the animators on your team are doing. You have a better understanding of their part of game development. And by extension, you're able to communicate with them much more effectively. The other reason why this is really important is sound design. It helps you get a better idea of how long you might want your sound effects to be. If you have an idea that an animation takes 60 frames, so 1 second, it's not going to be a good idea to design a sound that might play for 5 seconds because that's way longer than you need. Having this knowledge of how animations work through learning frame data can be incredibly helpful and make you a stronger team player who is creating more fitting sound effects. This next bit of knowledge might be more applicable if you're a technical sound designer, but still certainly could have its uses when you're not more on the technical side. In fighting games, you often try to find really powerful strategies because you want to beat your opponent. You really dive into the minutia of the game's mechanics and your character's abilities to really try to find some of the craziest stuff you can do, things that maybe your opponents won't be able to escape and they're like forced to block something. This idea of just trying and trying again and continuing to like break down, oh, what's wrong with this, or maybe how can I improve it? And if you've worked in game dev or technical sound design things already, you probably know that I'm getting at bug testing and troubleshooting. There are many times where maybe you're working in Unreal or Unity and you're just trying to get your sound effects to play the right way. You just have to keep on digging at it and keep on trying, and that idea and that persistence that you may have developed from playing fighting games can be really helpful. Now, this next tip is way more applicable if you are a freelancer, but still very helpful if you are in a team, and that is learning about color theory. If you've looked at my website or my YouTube channel, you may have seen this logo. As I was playing a lot of fighting games, I realized that a color scheme that showed up in a lot of characters that I think are really awesome was red and white. Character artists, especially in fighting games, really try to make the characters stand out. And a lot of the designs of these characters are based in the artistic ideas of color theory. If you start seeing those sort of color combinations in characters you like, it could be helpful to apply those to some of your promotional material. Furthermore, it might help you think of how to present those colors through sound. Sometimes we say like, oh, this sound is like a nice warm feeling, right? Well, maybe if you see that a character has like a warm color of like a red or an orange, trying to aim for those sort of warmer sounds with them might be more helpful. A website that is really helpful when it comes to learning the basics of color theory and what colors might go well together is mycolor.space. I'll leave a link in the Twitch Q&A for the live stream and in the description of the YouTube video when I post this. Last but not least, I'd like to talk about something that is probably one of the most prominent issues that you'll run into when playing fighting games, and many people outside of the fighting game community probably know about. I'm just gonna play this clip first to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. I love these special move callouts. They are iconic and so memorable from the franchises they originate from. But hearing the exact same clip over and over and over and over again can absolutely lead to audio fatigue over time. Something to consider with any sort of game that you're developing is to have some variation on these audio clips, whether that means having a couple different clips that you can swap between, or having some little effects like some extra EQ or something just to change it a little bit. Now the caveat is you're not going to want to change it too much. Humans react faster to audio stimuli than visual stimuli. And this is really important in fighting games. Any amount of time that you can get, or that the player can have to make a decision, they will take it. And having those audio cues to sort of ingrain in their mind that this is the move that's happening is very helpful for the player. Now, the one exception I will say to repeated voice clips is for sequences that don't happen often. Let's take another look at a Street Fighter example to show you what I'm talking about.
Hope you like this! Get ready!
This voice clip plays whenever the character activates their Ultra combo. The player won't even use an Ultra every round. There are some situations where it's just not smart to use it. So the fact that it doesn't come up often, but it's a big turning moment when it does happen, it's really good to have that same voice clip to get the player excited. It really builds that player-character connection. Thank you everyone for coming out today. I hope this talk was really helpful. I've left my contact information in case you have any other questions, so please feel free to reach out. Until then, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you all next time.